Welcome, Ms. Romanuk.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to the special counsel for hearing me tonight. My name is Danielle Romanuk and I'm a resident of St. Catharines. I'm speaking in opposition of this amendment, as the bylaw in its current state has caused me great distress, and I am asking you all to vote no to this amendment to help me and many others like me in keeping this distress from our doors. I'll be speaking to my experience of the current bylaw to give context for my argument against further infringing on Ontario's Information Protection Act, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, not to mention Ontario's Human Rights Code and our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The education around the bylaw has already been lacking, and the region made a bylaw to bring consistency to the region due to all of the confusion about having to learn individual bylaws. This amendment will only cause further confusion. I've had numerous experiences of harassment and discrimination since the advent of the masking bylaw. My right to health information privacy has been trampled. My right to reasonable accommodation has been trampled. My rights to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly have also been trampled. This could all have been avoided if the bylaw had been written more carefully to include reference to our rights as residents of Ontario, Canada, as well as make sure that these aspects of the bylaw were being adhered to, as our rights supersede the bylaw on all accounts, making the violations I have encountered a worse offense than not wearing a mask, as the bylaw provides exemptions but does not provide for our rights to be overwritten on any level, as no law can. These greater violations need to be addressed before they are broadened. I feel like I have to assert this over and over, so I am here to plead with you to vote no to this amendment, as the bylaw is already causing distress and controversy, and the city is overreaching their authority in telling the public that they will have to mask in even more places. I have made numerous phone calls to public health about exemptions, and their only answer to me has been, if you think you are exempt, then you are exempt. But I still face harassment from people on a regular basis. Can this bylaw lawfully compel private property owners to adopt a policy over people who have legal leases? My building is a small walk-up. I rarely encounter anyone in the hall, and when I do, I keep my distance. Masking exasperates my chronic condition, so having to wear one to avoid harassment while I get my mail or do laundry would actually prevent me from doing those things. The bylaw, as it stands, already has issues of rights and enforceability that were not fully thought through, and this will only add to that. Has this been thought through as far as evictions go? If I require no proof of exemption, how is any of this enforceable? Why should it not therefore remain voluntary with a recommendation to wear one if you can? The city's bylaw does not even have a sanitizer provision, and neither does the amendment, meaning that the people will be masking without first cleaning their hands when entering a building, which according to Dr. Hergy can increase the spread. This bylaw and its amendment are only addressing the risk of COVID-19 to the peril of exasperating and aggravating of my chronic conditions and my mental illness. And so it does not truly protect my health, safety, and well-being as being claimed. I'm already being harassed and discriminated against, and now I am in a position where I will face this at my own address. I've already had issues with my landlords, so I do not need to be further harassed due to more confusion surrounding this bylaw, its enforcement, and the exemptions that for some reason are excluded from the poster information. Like the bylaw, the amendment lacks any accountability for the misuse of masks, for the disposal of masks, or for the maintenance of masks. Before we broaden the reach of this bylaw, perhaps we need to make sure it's functioning and valid, because this amendment will now also contradict the regional bylaw, and it is my understanding that the regional bylaw will always supersede a municipal one if taken to a court of law, making this a waste of all our time, as well as any court will have to hear this, plus all the additional calls to public health, the landlord tenant board, any human rights agencies, and you all as counselors. The amendment is for the provision that states masking is necessary, recognized, practicable, and effective method to limit the spread of COVID-19. But is this true? Why does the amendment not then just include everyone all the time, 24/7, even in our homes? There are several more questions that should be discussed and considered before this vote, such as who is tasked with enforcing this and who will protect me from those who are unlawfully trying to enforce this upon me. This amendment is not complete, as it does not correct the current problems with citizens believing that they are to enforce this and that it's okay to harass and discriminate. Where is the true protection for those who already, before COVID-19, were facing health issues, disabilities, etc.? This is about protecting each other, and we have failed an already outcast subset of society. The mayor and the mayors of the region are part of an initiative to end oppression and discrimination in the city and region. And here we are making a new category of discrimination and now widening the arena for said discrimination to continue. Again, I urge you to vote no. This bylaw further impairs people who already have accessibility issues as it is, and this amendment only furthers that. Masking is voluntary in common areas and should remain that way in apartments and condominiums. The current bylaw already encroaches too far, and this only makes it worse for people like me with physical disabilities as well as mental illness. May God keep this land glorious and free. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Romanuk. Very well articulated. A question from Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Ms. Romanuk, for coming in tonight. Just a quick question. Are you in the belief that the wearing of face masks protects against the spread of COVID-19?
I understand that there are some water droplets that can be prevented, but I also understand that the person wearing it has to be infected for any kind of prevention, and that social distancing of 6 feet is a better measure, and that masking makes people think they can actually approach you. And when I have been unmasked, I have had several people get right up in my personal space about this. And I've said to them, you should be social distancing from me right now, especially considering I'm not wearing a mask. So I'm very up to date on what's going on because I have my health to consider with chronic illness. And I really need to know what to do. So I am taking my vitamins. I'm getting proper sleep. I'm doing what I can to reduce the stress, as I learned in the chronic pain group that I was a part of that was cut short when all of this shut down and never was reinstated. So I'm doing my best for me, and what's happening is that the stress is worse. The stress is worse. So I'm doing everything I can. I live alone also. I spend the majority of my time by myself. So the few times that I'm actually going out, I'm using pickup as much as I can. I'm staying away from people, and it's just, there's this feeling of my world becoming smaller and smaller and smaller because of COVID-19, but that's just one thing that can kill you. That's just one thing.
Can I just ask, I'm going to jump into, is there an alternative? Is there something that the city can do differently to protect residents that are living in condominiums or apartments, in your opinion?
Well, they can make a recommendation and encourage people to wear a mask when they can, and not give the impression that it is absolutely mandatory, because the problem too is these posters that do not fully explain the bylaw, that there are exemptions and why those exemptions are there, and that it's not just a violation of the bylaw to not let someone be exempt, but it's a violation of an Accessibility Act, and to require proof of an exemption is a violation of our Health Information Protection Act. And it goes beyond just a city ordinance or a regional ordinance, and even the provincial one that's in place now. These all override all of that, and it's not being educated. And so I go out, and it's the general public. It's not even the people who are at the store telling me I need to mask. It's the people in the aisles who just have no idea and point to a poster and say, you need to be wearing a mask. And I say, actually, I'm doing everything else I can. That's the one thing I can't do. And it's gone too far. And I don't need to, you know, if I open up my door of my apartment, I have to mask. I don't even own a mask because it's not, I'm more than willing to read you my doctor's note as well, that I actually am one of the few people who has a doctor's note, and it says this.
No, you don't need
to answer my question. I appreciate it.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the presenter? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Romanuk, for your presentation. Very, very much appreciated.